I've got a light. I have a light. I have some shelves. I've got this microphone again because my other one started acting like a jerk. I bonked the microphone. I didn't boink it. I bonked it. And it put a big line on my recording. Bonk you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. John Bunn here, joined by my good friend Nick Miller.
Hey, how you doing, John?
I'm doing really good. I'm about to head out at the time of recording. Next week I'm heading out to Venture. I'm really excited about that. I've filmed 3 weddings since being back from wedding season. Was in Kansas City last weekend. My body is tired, but recouping. So I'm getting back in that wedding flow, but I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to, just you and me today.
Yeah, just me and you.
No guests. It's been a minute since it's been just the two of us. People keep asking for that. Not anything against our guests, but they're like, man, it'd be cool if you guys did a podcast together. So here we are.
I am doing well. I just ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, had my coffee, my water. I'm ready to talk about some stuff today.
Yeah, man. So this podcast episode kind of comes from a conversation like that Nick and I had a couple of weeks back. And, I've been in a very similar position. I feel like a lot of our listeners have get in similar positions where today we're just going to be talking about money and money in general. Yes, but like more specifically, how to make sure that as wedding videographers that we have money in all of the months and how we're able to, spread it out in such a way and know that we're making the right decisions. So on months where it might be a little tighter, we can know that there's money in the bank to take care of all the things. So why don't you, Nick, tell us a little bit about kind of what's been going on with you, a few weeks back, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And then we can jump into talking about whatever you want to talk about, however we want to talk about it.
Yeah. So we're just going to be open and sharing about something that I know makes a lot of people uncomfortable a little bit, is just to talk about money. But I think it's really, really important, especially everyone in this community, because we all feel this, especially if you are 100% self-employed. And so we just wanted to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and talk about it. I know it's super easy, maybe for those listeners out there who read posts that John or I post or some other people, and we say, oh, I just booked a $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, $12,000, $15,000 wedding. And I know I can automatically think, oh my gosh, that person has it all together. Like they are making so much money. If only I could do that. And I want to let you know that 2020 is right now currently going to be our highest booking year ever. Okay? Ever. And the winter of 2019, January through, probably April, May, we're in May now, has been really, really tough on us. I want to be super transparent. John and I really want to be transparent in this podcast and whenever we talk about things. And it was really tough. And I chalk that up to poor budgeting. I didn't, plan for the money that I had. I didn't look what was coming in, when stuff was coming in. Because we started going to a higher price point, I started kind of going to a payment model more like John's, where I take $1,000 now and then I split up payments later. But because of that, in January of 2018, I think we brought in something like almost $12,000 in January alone. But because of how I split up payments, that only turned out to be about $3,000 or $4,000, to last me a lot longer. And so that was a big part of it. And then, just budgeting in and of itself and not paying attention to our personal finances and spending too much money there. And then we look at our bank account and it is the lowest that it has been since probably year 2 of having this wedding business, and I had a full-time job at that point too. So it's just been a real struggle, and it's been a frustration, and it's been a worry. In this entire spring, winter time, I've just been wondering, like, how are we going to make this work? Like, am I going to have to call my mom for a loan? Are we going to be able to pay our mortgage next month? Like, all these things, and it's really stressing out. So John and I have just been talking a little bit, and he shared some stuff about budgeting and stuff about that. So I'm going to let him kind of go in and talk a little bit about all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that number one, it's like, I think we've all been there. I've been to a position before where like, I either was going to pay my gas bill or my water bill or my electric. I'm going to put this, gas in my car on a credit card, even though I know it's going to max out my credit card. And there is a lot out there, and we do post a lot and see a lot of posts of people talking about all these good things that are out there and happening to them. I booked this big wedding. But the truth of the matter is it's a very much like it's ebbs and flows with our business. Some months can be crazy good, some can be crazy bad. And I know there are a lot of people out there listening that kind of can, you can get depressed if you're not careful.
Super easy.
And you're sitting here thinking, okay, I've got, $2,000 coming in the rest of the month. I've got $4,000 worth of bills, and I've got 6 wedding films to edit, none of which I'm going to get any money from because I've already gotten paid for this.
And I've already spent it.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, I've already spent all the money that's come in from this. I don't know where more money can come from. I need to do this work that is I owe people, but I also need to sell other work. And you get in this, like, if you're not careful and paying attention, you get in this like really bad, rat race of trying to figure out how you're going to make ends meet. And so, I mean, as our business has grown. I mean, there was a year that we did almost $500,000 in revenue, and there were 2 months where I didn't pay myself anything and had to like get late fees on everything because I didn't have enough money in the bank to cover these things. And it was like, how are we making this much as a company? And I'm not making, I don't have enough money in my account to cover these things. So that's kind of the point of today's conversation is just kind of to talk about how, I'm in a much better place now than I was where, I have some things in place and some, just kind of fail safes in place so I don't get myself in that position. And so we're just going to talk about how I do it, how Nick does it, just kind of walk through some of those things. Then we also asked a couple questions on, got to ask a couple questions on Facebook. So
where did you ask those questions?
I asked it on Facebook, our Facebook group. Nick, are you doing a plug?
I am doing a plug. I like it that it's become our thing to plug the thing that we're plugging, like making a big deal that we're plugging the thing that we're plugging.
Yes. Well, it's a double plug. Wait a second.
I don't know what that means, but anyway.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Oh goodness.
Okay,
goodness.
but yes. So I want to throw it back over to you to kind of.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't necessarily write down a ton of things. What I do, I just think it would be best if you're just kind of talk about how you currently do it, and then maybe I could, throw some suggestions, and we could maybe help each other out.
Okay, so I do want to give a little bit of a background, and some of this I know is totally personality and who I am. There are some of you out there that might be like 1 on the Enneagrams, or like A-type, accountant type people, like business, checklists and money and spreadsheets, and like that's your jam, and so you're probably. Like budgets are just probably second nature to you if you're that type of person. However, I think there's a lot of us, and typically when you kind of get into the creative field, people that are more creative tend to not worry about frivolous thing like finances and money and where it's going to come from. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am lean more that. And then also money wasn't something that my parents really talked to me a whole lot about. Like growing up, like I knew that my dad made money and I knew we were supposed to give money to church. But like other than that, like we didn't really talk about it. And so I wasn't really taught how to have a relationship with money and how to, what to do with it. And so I have always struggled with budgets and finances and putting stuff together and looking ahead when it comes to money because it's just something that I never thought about, even though I have been married for 12 years and I've been out on my own for 16,
right.
It's just stuff that I still struggle with. And so at church, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we had the opportunity to go through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, which I think John and I will both plug the snot out of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Okay. And whether you're a church-going person or not, his stuff works and it is good and it will help you out of whatever financial situation you are in. So right now, if you are in some kind of poor, bad, you're in lots of debt, you don't know what to do, pause this podcast seriously and just Google Financial Peace University in your city and try to find some place that is putting that on. You can learn a lot from that. So my wife and I went through that a few years ago, and it's one of those great things that whenever you learn stuff, then you live the double-edged sword of just choosing to ignore it or choosing to do it. And because of who I am and whatever, often we have just ignored it. And and it has gotten us into this really poor situation. But I remember going through Dave Ramsey's stuff, and one of the things was, he was like, you need to just build a budget. Just put one together. And so that is a very daunting thing. Like the very first time that you do it is just writing stuff down and figuring it out. So I think maybe what I would like for you to talk about, if you can for a few seconds, is talking about maybe how you go about setting up a budget. And I know we're being specific towards business, the business side of things, but this will definitely work with personal finances. And if you're self-employed, it all kind of flows together anyway. So why don't you just kind of talk about your process and how you develop a budget and build a budget?
So a couple things. Dave Ramsey, yes, big fan of him. I think that, you have to gauge whether or not you want to, be a completely crazy person and try to live a completely debt-free life. I don't want to get into like a debate with our people about whether you should have a ton of debt or not, or leveraging. Like that's a little bit, I don't want to do that with this podcast.
Sure.
But all I know is what's worked for me and my wife, as well as for our business. So a couple of things is I keep my business finances and my personal finances 100% completely separate. So if somebody writes a check to me for my business, they write it to Redeemed Productions. I have a separate business account that the money goes into, and then I write a check to John Bunn from Redeemed Productions as pay, and I keep everything super, split, separate. It gets real messy if you start like buying your groceries with the money that's in your business account, and your taxes are crazy and you get audited. It's not good. So and everything I'm going to tell you guys about today is stuff, and Dave Ramsey says it a lot, just like common sense. That's like, oh yeah, obviously that makes sense. But so first of all, I have everything come into the Redeemed Productions account, and then that's whenever I would pay myself money that comes home to me that is taxed, that kind of thing. Our budget, we have a budget for each, our home and our business, and I have a spreadsheet for our business that Nina and I developed together that it shows me 12 months at a time. And I think that, and it shows them in columns, to say January, and then next to it's the same thing, because your bills are kind of the same every month. What your fixed bills are, your cell phone, your, all the things for your business or your personal, but I'm just going to talk about business for now. So we have like our HoneyBook membership and our Music Bed membership and our cell phones and our internet and our, all the things that are every month. And then we have my salary and Nina's salary. And like all of these are line items in the January column. And then also there's a February column that also has all of these things in them. And so it's all throughout the year. So if there's any type of recurring payment, I want to have that out, and it's in order from day 1 of the month to day 31 of the month. So like I know when they're due, all that kind of good stuff. So it's like, it's very organized to know that, okay, on the 1st, this is coming out. On the 2nd, this is coming out. And it just makes it easy for me to see it. Another thing that we have in this spreadsheet at the top is where we will go into the bank account once a week, twice a week, and update the very top number, which is how much is in the bank account. And at the bottom, it will tell me with all the spreadsheet how much is left after paying all those bills. So, it might say John's salary this much, Nina's salary this much, Music Bed this much. At the top is the number that's in the account. It subtracts them all down for you. And at the bottom, it says you have this much money after spending everything. It could be a negative number. It could be a positive number. But that's going to give me a gauge on like how we're doing with that month. And it's one of those things that like we developed. It took a long time to get the actual spreadsheet to work how we wanted it to work. It was one of those things that was like, no, I want it to do this. I want it to do that. And so now the number that's at the bottom carries over from January to the top number of February. So I can always look like January, February, and March. I know that right now, if it's January 1, if March 1st says negative $4,000, that means that in the next 3 months, I need to make $4,000 to like pay myself the salary I want to pay,
right,
as well as that. So that spreadsheet itself has saved me so much time and money. But the very first line on that, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that's such a key point that you're looking ahead. I think back to the podcast we did with Rob Adams. I think it was number 15 or something like that. Whenever we asked him, what would be advice that you would give to your younger self? And right off the bat, he said, know your numbers. And this is the case because so many of us, when it comes to financial struggle and financial trouble, is February 15th, we look at our bank statement and we know I cannot make my house payment on March 1st and I have 2 weeks to figure that out. And the system that you have put together, you're able to look in advance and say, okay, on January 1, I know that I am good and I can pay everything until April 1st. So from January 1st until March 31st, I have to figure out a way to get more money so that I can be okay later in the year. And I think that is a good way to look at it, and because a lot of people react instead of plan ahead.
Yeah, it's about playing defense a lot.
Yeah,
alongside the offense. I will say too that in this spreadsheet there are lines that we have for when we're scheduled payments via HoneyBook. So like Nina will go in, or I will go in and say, I know that there's $4,000 coming in as a payment due on this day. So I factor that in and have her. Every time somebody books a wedding, she goes in and adds those numbers into the payments in the line. So like there's positive numbers, negative numbers. Right. And so that way we know, hey, right now June is $3,000 short. Well, it's, May, or it's not in my real life. But like if I knew that in June it was short by $3,000, I know I need to either book another wedding at a discount or something. I need to sell some hard drives. I need to do a photo sale. I need to, so it gives me time. And so like I kind of operate on a 3-month window of time.
Almost by you take it quarter by quarter.
Yeah. And so like right now I'm thinking, it's the beginning of May when we're recording this, I'm thinking about May, June, and July. And as it sits right now, July is going to be short by about $2,000. I think so. And that's a small number compared to like the full business of what we're doing. But on average, every month, I know that we're going to generate an unplanned $4,000 to $10,000 of revenue in our company through bookings or sales, or just with the data that I have month over month, year over year. And with these spreadsheets, like I can look at my 2018 spreadsheet and say, okay, in January we brought in this much of last year, January this much of this year, and I can start comparing some of this data. But so that was the first point, is that like I want there to be lines for the income, and there's columns. They're green for like money coming in, red for money going out, and black for like the total. And so like it just is a really organized way for me to plug in all my numbers and keep everything organized. It carries month over month. But the thing that really started to change my life, before I get to the change my life part, do you have any questions about how that spreadsheet works?
No, I think it's genius how you have it set up, where you can kind of, in another misconception, or maybe something that's kind of a pain or a struggle when it comes to budgets, is you really need to do this regularly. And by regularly, you need to do it at least monthly. And you need to keep tabs on it at least once a week, every other, sometime. And so that's a point that I want to make, that I have learned, is you need to come back to this. You need to have, and probably, the last day of the month before the new month starts isn't whenever you should really start putting all this together. You need to do it maybe about like the 20th or so of each month to really look ahead. But you need to get in the habit of doing this every month so that you can be prepared and you can know what is going to happen exactly, the next month.
Right. Because what can happen is you can have a killer month, right? You make whatever that number is that's really big, like a $10,000 month, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's time for feast, and And we say, feast or famine in this business a lot, but it's like if you can see the next 6 months out and you realize that right now September is short by $4,000, you might be able to say, you know what, of that $10,000 that's in there right now that I wasn't expecting or that's above, I need to save that amount back. And that's where I was going to move into like what really changed my life was at the very top of this budget sheet. The first thing that we have is a line called savings. And before I do anything in the month, as the company itself, Redeemed Productions, I push over like $500 into a savings account. And I do this every month forever. So I've been doing this for years.
So let me, so this isn't a personal John Bunn savings. This is for your business. I have this rainy day fund for my business. Mm-hmm. So if you can't make that music bed payment, I mean, you're in a little different situation because you have an employee and you have, an office and all that kind of stuff. But you actually have money for your business set aside for your business in the future if need be.
Yeah. So yes, and so whatever that number is, I mean, I try to put somewhere $300 to $500 a month myself, just back before anything else. So like every year it goes up by $5,000 or $6,000, but what happens is you end up dipping into that from time to time, and so at the beginning I funded it a little bit like harder. I put a few $1,000s into that account just so it's like
has something in it.
It has something in it. And then every month before anything else, I'm putting money in that and paying my company as a retained earnings is what that account is technically is retained earnings. So that way that every month I know that like, okay, if it's short this amount, I've got this amount over here in this account that will keep me safe. It's more of like a coat of protection or like, I'm just trying to weather any storms. It's an umbrella. It's just me trying to make sure that I'm safe if a storm comes.
Right. Back to the Dave Ramsey stuff. One of the things that he teaches and he preaches after, you get rid of all your debt is to save up anywhere from 3 to 6 months of income in case you lose your job or something like that. So you're essentially doing that for your business. Let's just say you go through a 5-month stretch where no one books you, but you're still doing it. You have money to pull back on and to live off of and all of that stuff.
And there's certain months where it's like I don't have any extra money to put into the savings like or whatever, but like I still try to do that first because I can always just push the money back from my savings into the checking account if I need to. But I like putting myself in a position where I'm forced to try to figure out how to either generate some more money if I need to, or like if I don't pay myself first or my company first, everything gets spent and then I'm like, where'd the money go? So like having that budget sheet, the very first thing that's on the deal is, how much money are we going to put in our retained earnings savings account this month?
That's great.
Here's all the bills that are coming in. And then at the end of the month, the goal is to have a positive number. If there's a positive number, a couple $1,000s, or more, that number goes up to the beginning of the next month. And then I factor in all the payments that are coming in the next month and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. And so right now, like at this time of the year, I've got about 2.5 months of full bills in our savings account right now. So if need be, I know that July, I'm not shooting a single wedding. And so like the way I break my payment structure up is that like they pay as we're getting a little closer to the wedding. And so like I know next month, like I did know that like, okay, I got to be careful so I don't overspend because my goal is to not to ever have to touch that rainy day fund. But I think a lot of us just don't think that like whenever a big paycheck comes in, like, like it's not sexy to be like, I'm going to sit this over here aside. I'm going to, like that's not what you buy a drone, right? Yeah.
Oh, I just thought of that from Friends whenever they're all going to go buy the lottery and Ross is like, I'll probably put it in a low yielding bond. And they're like, what? And he was like, piss it all away. And they're like, yeah. Anyways, I don't know if you remember that.
Yes. I do remember that. Yeah, I do.
No, I think the big thing that you're talking about is the importance of looking ahead. Like we are so accustomed to, so many of us, and myself included, I think are so accustomed to living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck that we don't ever get the opportunity to look ahead. And one of the reasons that we're living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck is because we're not like looking at our finances and figuring out a budget and, that kind of stuff. I know that definitely talk to an accountant about this and how you pay yourself, but a struggle that, because for a long time when I had another job, I just got in the habit where I wouldn't necessarily, tax wise, I gave myself a paycheck, but I would just transfer money over whenever I needed something extra and something to do that. And so I haven't been in the habit of saying, okay, on the 1st and the 15th, this is how much money I get. And then, live like I've just kind of been, this month I need $3,000. So I'm going to transfer. Oh, I only need $1,500 now. And I just, randomly transfer it and I just count it as a paycheck. And I think that is something that has hurt me because I'm taking what I need when I need it rather than budgeting and planning and figuring that out.
Yeah. And it's all about stability. That's what I'm looking for is like, I was listening to Dave Ramsey this morning and somebody called in on his show and was talking. He was saying the tortoise always wins the race every time he reads the book. Mm-hmm. And it's boring and it's not like marketable necessarily, but it's the truth that like every month just putting $300 or $400 in the account, $300 or $400 more, 500, 1,000, whatever you have, $50, just like saving something, trying to save, somewhere around 5 to 10% of what comes in. If you can do that, especially in the good months, that will cause you to be able to flourish. And what it has done for me is that like, so usually November and December aren't the busiest for like the most money coming in.
Okay.
Because we take payments 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, and 1 month before the wedding. So I don't do a lot of January weddings. So there's not too many dollars coming in December from January weddings. And December is when Christmas is. And two Christmases ago, which is that far removed, not very far removed at all, we had like $212 to our name 2 Christmases ago, making a 6-figure income and generating almost $500,000 as a company. And it wasn't because we didn't pay ourselves. It was because we didn't plan ahead. And Christmas got there, and I didn't have any money to buy Christmas presents for my family and my wife. And so it's tough to talk about, but we had a garage sale. We rolled up quarters and we put together like $200 to be able to get Christmas presents for my family. And my gift to my wife that year was a $5 or $10 journal from Barnes & Noble that had a note written in the front of it that said, our bank account has this much in it. This is the last time we'll ever have this little in our bank account. I swear it to you. Is this basically letter to her? Mm-hmm. This book is we're to fill this book with all of the amazing blessings that God gives us based on us being good stewards of his money. Mm-hmm. And so as Christians, it was kind of our line in the sand. We're going to do things differently, and if you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, Albert Einstein's quote, you're insanity. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of when we started, we make a lot of money. Let's save some of it. So we'll have some of it in the rainy day, And so I know a lot of the listeners out there are, they have another job, but they're trying to move into full time. And the biggest thing that will kill a business is the fact that it's like 2 or 3 months with no income as a video person. And so what has happened now is in those months like December of last year, well, I had, in my personal budget saved $100 a month for Christmas. And so we had $1,200 to spend on Christmas with no problem. And life was good because I had saved a little bit every single month. And my Christmas fund is already funded for this year and it's May. So I know that life is in, you keep doing that long enough, you have enough money in those accounts and the stability happens. And then when somebody calls you in December and says, hey, my wedding's in January, I have a super low budget. You don't just say, oh, yes, I'll take it.
Right.
You say, you know what? Sorry. I turned down last November. I had a bride that wanted to pay me over $10,000 for her wedding video and photos. And she was just the wrong fit. And I told her no. The month before Christmas, I told her that I didn't think it was a good fit, that she should find somebody else. In November of last year, which is usually Thanksgiving to New Year's is
it's brutal.
Usually the most
so brutal.
Right. But I was able to tell her, no, if you want to do this, you're going to have to pay us $15,000, which is the full price for video and photo, or we're just not going to be able to do it.
Right.
And so it changes everything.
Man, that's all such good information. And I want you to I know you've talked a little bit about it in the past in other YouTube videos, but I want you to talk about your how you set up your multiple payment plan. How just because, how so many of us do it and how I've done it for so long is 50% at booking and then 50% a month beforehand, which, you're getting theoretically two pretty big checks, but if you have that wedding in May and you really need some money in February, you're hurting a little bit. So why don't you just kind of talk through that a little bit?
Yeah. A few years back, I just realized that 50% up front, 50% a week before the wedding was causing cash flow gaps. I was making enough money, but there was a gap in my cash flow, leading up to it, January, February, for a March wedding. And it was hey, it would make it easier on the bride and groom and easier to sell to them if I could say you're going to make 3 payments of $1,500 instead of one $4,500 payment.
Right.
And it was a service, a courtesy to them if they wanted to pay me over several months. If they wanted to pay the whole thing, that's fine. Now if a big payment comes in, I know how to distribute it amongst the budget. And so, we broke it down now where we do $1,000 reserves video, photo, or video or photo, 2,000 reserves both. And the $1,000, might be a year before the wedding or 8 months or whatever. And then we start doing 25% of the balance, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, and 1 month out from the wedding. Mm-hmm. They can go in and pay anytime they want, but that's just how we set it up. So we know that it's going to break it up into 4 months out. So in January, I'm starting to get some of the money from May weddings. And so that helped me cover those months because it used to be oh my goodness, winter's coming, winter is coming. And but it's, and it was just oh no, it's, it's the worst time for our money. And this year I've been doing something even one step further is I've just been setting for everybody that is booking that's either a December or a January payment of $1,000. So no matter when their wedding is, I just say there's one payment in this month of $1,000 and then the rest are due and when you have 14 brides that are now paying $1,000 in December and 14 more that are paying in January, I can spread it out based, it's not, I go in manually to to Honeybook now. And we basically have a payment come in December or January, each wedding that books for next year, each wedding. And so these people just have a payment due and they're cool to pay it. They know it's coming. And then that covers some of those months too.
Yeah.
So if people are looking for it, looking for a way to spread that out, you might not do 4 payments, you might do 3 or 2. But you don't have to have a science behind it when they're booking. You can just say, hey, there's a payment due. You look at your 12 months and you realize September is super low. You're about to book a wedding for next summer. You can say, we have 1 payment now, 1 payment in September, and then the rest
And there's nothing wrong with also, bringing up the idea of payment plans for couples and say, hey, to make this easy on you, I take one, just 12 months away. I divide this whole price into 12 and say, we're taking 1 payment a month, so that can make it so that they're not paying, $5,000 in one lump sum, they're paying $500 a month or whatever, which will help you out getting a monthly payment like that. So, all
that's a really good plan.
Really good stuff. And just, if you have this spreadsheet, something like that John is talking about, you can take the year at a glance and into, the next year and figure out, when do I need to get payments? When should I receive payments? You can figure all that stuff out so that you're not in trouble. So we asked John put in our Facebook group, does anyone have questions? And so we've kind of covered some of this stuff, but we'll kind of rehash it a little bit. Ben Palmer asked, what app do you use to track this? And I think you just said you don't use an app.
I don't. I mean, I have our banking app that has all the different accounts. So I check our bank account once every few days now. It used to be like 3 times a day because it's like, oh my gosh, I hope that thing doesn't come through because it's going to overdraft us and I need to transfer money.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we have our banking app for our bank itself. And then we do all of our spreadsheets on Google Docs. And so I have the Google spreadsheets on my phone. And Nina can update different things as they happen, or I can update different things, and it just auto updates the sheet. So that's what I use. I know there are apps that you can do for budgeting. And
we actually just recently started subscribing to YNAB, which is youneedabudget.com. It's I think designed more for like personal finances and that kind of stuff, but if that's something that you're looking into and you actually want an app, that you can just type stuff in on your phone rather than a spreadsheet or something like that, that might be something that you could look to.
There's also Every Dollar.
Every Dollar.
Ramsey's app is Every Dollar, and it's really good, and that's what we use for our personal finances. And I will say just a little bit about on the personal side with this. We didn't jump right into it. That answers Ben's question, and it made me think about just the personal side of it. So if everything's separate, we then write myself a check on usually like the 25th and the 10th. So it's in and processed before the 1st and the 15th. So like on the 25th of April, Nina wrote me a paycheck, and I went and took that and deposited it into my account. And from there, that's where I pull out the taxes and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I pay all my monthly bills and my budget. And we do all that through Every Dollar on Dave Ramsey's app. So that's just a little side note. If you keep it all separate, your accountant will really love you at the end of the year or the beginning of the year.
And I know if you are an LLC, a sole proprietor, legally you do not have to keep it separate, but it's just going to be... Maybe that's not true. Don't listen to me. But I'm just saying, if you don't have separate accounts, like it's just going to make your life miserable, especially when it comes to tax time.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people are shady when it comes to like writing things off that they shouldn't write off, and I don't. Like I made a decision, like to my knowledge, I don't do anything incorrectly. And if if my accountant says, "Hey, you're doing this wrong," I immediately fix it. But they're watching, and I do pay somebody a monthly fee to like watch my books and make sure that I'm good and give me profit and loss. And I'm a little bit bigger of a company. I don't think you need to do that necessarily, but the point of the conversation, I think, is to like just be looking ahead.
Yes.
And be thinking ahead. Another question from the Facebook group. Nick, we have a Facebook group.
We do. I think we've already plugged it already.
Just search how to film weddings on Facebook. Yeah. There's like 1,500 people in there at this point. Well, it's crazy.
Maybe by the time this airs, there will be 1,500.
Well, okay, there were 1,341 this morning, so I'm a big round the number up to 1,500 kind of guy. Tyler Deaton says renting versus buying gear. I operate my business with no debt. There's no debt on our company. I've had debt on our company. I've had, I've owed money for leasing cameras. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It just didn't work for me. Dave Ramsey says 0 credit cards. We have one business credit card that we run everything through. It has incredible points and is a nice bonus. I don't look at it. Nina does. Basically runs every bill through it and then makes one payment a month just because it makes life easier. Plus we get up to 5% back. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that we spend each year go through it, and it usually yields me $1,000 to $1,500 of cash at the end of the year, which is just a bonus. I don't recommend people put things on credit, that kind of thing. That's just another side note, of course. But yeah, renting versus buying the gear. Last year I rented the C100 Mark II, I think 16 times. My second one, like I had one and didn't have enough cash set aside to buy another one. And so I just rented from a friend $100 a time. I say it's the cost of patience. I didn't want to get into a position where I owed money to somebody and it was a bill in a month that wasn't, taken care of, and then it's more pressure. So to me, the less amount of payments I have, the more money's in the end of the month, more in the account. So We've never had a balance on our credit card. We don't have any debt of any sort on our company. So if I'm going to buy gear, I pay cash for it, and I usually buy it used. I've talked about this several times, but lensauthority.com or Adorama or places like that, Amazon. But you can buy used gear, and I buy most of mine from Lens Authority. Great deal. It's the sister company of Lens Rentals, and after they've rented it so many times, they send it back to Canon or Sony or whoever and get it certified and then sell it to you. So I've had great luck with them. I had one issue with a camera once that I had to go pay $500 more to get fixed, but it's been a great source for me. So I would rent things for two reasons. Money, number one, and number two, just because I want to see how I like that piece of gear. And you've talked about that.
Yeah, I've talked about that, how I spent close to $10,000 switching over to Sony's and hating it. So that's a big thing for renting first before you buy something. But yeah, just where I am in my life, like I don't want to accumulate more debt, and I would much rather, quote unquote, lose that $1,600 renting a C1, a Mark II for a year, rather than potentially paying even more than that in interest fees and debt and all that, or the stress that it could cause me because, I bought this new camera, which I really needed, but now I can't feed my family. So, that kind of thing.
And I will say too, it's very, very personal. Your finance is called personal finance for a reason. It's a very, very personal thing to me, but like I haven't talked about it a lot on the podcast, is that like personally, my wife and I both went to a private school completely on student loans, and we're not all the way finished paying those off. So I do have personal debt. I have my home and student loans. But when I got out of college and my wife got out of college, we had almost $400,000 in student loan debt. And we're not doctors, we're not lawyers. We have a health and exercise science degree, my wife, and I have a advertising and marketing degree. And I worked at a church. I couldn't afford the payments, so I just deferred, and it went from $200,000 to $400,000, and we are about $60,000 away from paying it all off. So we've almost paid off $400,000 worth of debt. So debt is like, I hate debt. I hate having $2,000 a month of college payments every month, and so every month we pay off more and more and more, and we're snowballing that out, and it's going away, and it should be gone soon. But so that's why I'm so adamant about not having payments, because it just chokeholds you to be able to run your business and makes you make decisions. They say oxygen is the same as cash, or cash is oxygen in business. And when you're low on cash, you're low on oxygen. You start to make some decisions that aren't great when you're low on oxygen.
Right.
You get desperate. And so we don't want to be desperate, because then we make dumb decisions when we're desperate.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that point right there kind of snowballs into the next question, and it's kind of two of them, and I'm going to combine them. But Kim Ferris asked, our business income is so variable. How do you accommodate for those fluctuations each month? I know you talked about kind of what you do, with your payment plans and having your spreadsheet and looking out ahead. And then also Marvin Flavian asked cash flow. He's like, I feel like I don't have any. And I think that's really the big thing when this winter, the problem that we had is I have money coming in. I have a good amount of money coming in 2019. The problem is that when I needed that money, I was still months away. Like my cash flow was one. So, do you want to touch on either of those? I think they kind of can go together a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, this is the struggle being, a solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever, is that like, the cash flow is the thing. You're like, I make, my company is making $100,000. How do I not have money right now? And you start to lay it all out and map it all out and be able to see it. You just realize that it's just, we used to say it a lot. Oh, there's a cash flow gap. Oh, there's a gap in our cash flow right here that we need to figure out. And I will say there's two sides of the equation.
Yes.
There is income and outgo. There's like, how much is coming in versus how much is going out. And so if there's cash flow problems, you either need to spread out your payments so there's more income in those months, or what I do from time to time is schedule my big sales of the year, whether that be hard drive sales for all the raw footage.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. That's usually like Black Friday, November. Oh, I'm going to send an email to everybody that I've shot their wedding in the last 3 years and say, if you have not bought, a hard drive with all the raw footage, it's usually $750. Now it's going to be $499. Or,
right.
The point that I'm getting to is that like sometimes you have to just get out and go sell if that's what you need today.
Mm-hmm.
And in the groups, I think we all talk about like, oh, don't sell yourself short, don't give a discount, don't do whatever. But it's like, when it comes down to it, if you need to pay your bills, if you have to give a discount and that's what you need to do, like give that discount, book that wedding. Don't let yourself get back in that position, but like take it as a motivator to say, I'm never going back here, but I'm going to do this wedding for X amount of dollars,
right.
$1,000 or $500, whatever you have to do. Like, I think a lot of us are like, well, nobody's booking us this year. And what do you do? And it's like, I'm going to get out there and make some money. Like, I'm going to figure out what I need to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's okay to like, and it's amazing to have the opportunity, especially here in the States, to like, oh, I'm in business. I decided I'm in business. I can go out and make money. Like I can do that.
Right.
So, it's like there's hard work. I know it's boring, but it's just like the hard work pays off. And doing that work, figuring out ways to generate income, whether that be a sale on something or calling all your old brides and saying, hey, I'd be willing to do a solo, I'll shoot solo for you for $2,500 instead of $4,000
right.
or whatever.
Right, something like that. Yeah, isn't it something that Dave says where he's like this is 80% mental, like when it comes to the budgeting, it's something like that where it's 80%
behavior.
Oh, 80% behavior. Yeah. So, all of this, it's very, whenever you sit down and you think of money and you put it, like, it is really common sense. Like, you want to make money, spend less money. You want to have stuff in your bank account, then have your expenses be lower, live within your means. That's a big thing. And so the problem is month 1 or month 2, like right now you're listening to this and you're like, I'm going to change and I'm going to start budgeting and I'm going to start paying attention to my money. And then after a couple months, whenever you're sort of kind of okay and you get it figured out, then you're like, whatever. It's like people that diet and exercise and they lose their 20 pounds that they wanted to lose. And as soon as they lose it, okay, now I can eat all the pizza and burgers again, and then you just gain it right back. So 80% behavior, just if you start it and you get going and you start making progress, keep up with it so that you can continue that success.
Yeah. And to add on to that, like what you're paying attention to is what flourishes in your life. You only have so much bandwidth in life. So creating systems that make it easy for you, to like be able to think about these things. So like one of the tabs that opens when I open up my Chrome browser or whatever is the budget tab, our numbers sheet. And so like I don't look at it every day, but it's up there in case I need to click over and kind of see and make, and the more that you do this, it's kind of like working out. It's kind of like in any of that kind of stuff is like the more you do it, the first month's going to be a lot harder to figure out. The second month's going to be a little bit easier. The third month's going to be, you're going to have to dip into that retained earnings account from time to time. That's not the end of the world. That's what it's there for, And so like I keep saying, I'm going to try to get 3 months of expenses in the account. And then it's like, I almost got to 3 months and I needed to, swoop in. And then another thing on that is that like, if you need gear, like if gear is what you need, if you need a new camera, if you need new lenses, you need to budget out for that gear. Not like the next time I get paid, I'm just going to buy that drone. If somebody wants to pay you for aerial footage and you have your license, all that good stuff, you can rent a drone for the day. You can pay somebody to come shoot for the day. But like, I would not just like people see extra money in the account and think, oh, I'm going to go buy that piece of gear now. And then they realize 3 months later that was a really bad decision. Which
comes back to people just not looking ahead. And not knowing their numbers and not paying attention to the budget. And so,
you don't have to like have 12 months figured out. Like I look in 3 month windows of time. It's like, I know that like, I can see October and right now October is short a little bit, but it's like I have from now until October to make sure that I've saved at least that much or have booked another wedding that makes a payment in that month or whatever. And then I can always be navigating based on looking at those numbers like, November's looking really short. If I book another 2020 wedding, which is most likely going to happen, I'm going to make them have a, $1,000, $2,000 payment in November as part of, policy, and say, hey, in November, that's one of our months that we have a payment come through, and you don't have to say because it's short or because you can say, just part of policy, we're going to do a November payment.
Yeah.
We do that payment. It's 9 months before the wedding, and then we'll do another one on this, and just work it into their payment schedule, and they'll make the payment, and that'll keep you, taken care of.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really want you all to, hear our hearts in this, and me coming from a place of stress and freaking out and like, how am I going to make this stuff work? And now that I have kind of gone through a season that was tougher financially, now I am figuring out things, and I have stuff in place so that I can move forward, and hopefully next year in the winter of 2020, I won't have to worry about this stuff. And again, like in our Facebook group, it's just with a whole bunch of other people that are doing this as well. So you have a support system. Like if you bring up money and people are like, I don't have any, there are other people that are going to be able to feel that with you and talk about that with you. This is, like you were saying earlier, John, this can feel very isolating, whenever you're you have your own business and you're just not making money and you don't know who to talk to. We want to create a system of support and help if this is something that we can help you with. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say too, and we're really excited about it. We've announced it already, but like, my goal and Nick's goal with this, with How to Film Weddings, is to give you guys so much free content to help your business.
Yes.
I mean, we have been giving, and we've worked our tails off to give you, 30 plus podcasts at this point, and we're going to continue to offer those for free. But we are offering, in our shop on our website at howtofilmweddings.com, the new product that we're launching today is the form that I use specifically. We're going to have in our shop at howtofilmweddings.com as something that you can buy and use for your business. Yes, you can make something like this for your business with, a spreadsheet, but we'll have a little video on there showing you how to use it. And it's just a full year calendar spreadsheet just already lined up for you. And that's something that we think we can offer to you that we've put a ton of extra time into, for a small amount. That helps support us, number one, but it'll also help you, with just like our other products in the shop, it's something that's going to make your business way easier. And then on top of it too, as we've mentioned before, but like the mentorship side of things is a huge deal. And having a buddy or having somebody you can, work with in your corner, we want to be that for you if you need that.
Yes.
We offer mentorships, 1 hour mentorships. It's right there on the homepage of our website. Just click mentorships, and it'll take you if you want to do a 1 hour Google Hangout specifically just for you and your business. That's both Nick and I. We figure out a time, we jump on, we goof around, have a good time for an hour, and we can talk through some specific things that might help you.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's just the resource, with our Facebook group. I mean, you can always buddy up with somebody. Our goal is not to try to sell you things, but we do think there are things of value that we can bring to you to help your business. And so if you want to check those out, howtofilmweddings.com.
That's right. Our website, howtofilmweddings.com. Just rolls right off your tongue, I guess.
It really does. And it's, Nick did a lot of work to get this thing up and running. And, we'll continually be adding things to our shop and make it easy for you to flourish in your business. If you have ideas for things that you want us to be producing so we can help you more, let us know. I'm really excited about this subject, though, when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. I know that if we can all be planning ahead and growing our businesses in a way that, is the tortoise over the hare, and we can help each other out, we can do what our goal is, which is to elevate the wedding video industry itself. And so, if you're not having to cut, your prices, your budget on the films because you do have a savings account that's going to help everyone in your market be able to charge more, and it's not going to bring it down. And we can seriously impact the entire industry if we're doing this. So it's really cool to see how this community is growing, and it's really cool to see just the change that we can make in our industry.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, I thank you, John, for sharing some of your wisdom and some stuff that you have learned over the years. And I hope that you listening at home, if you're feeling kind of like I did, that you do something about it and just start moving in the right direction so that in the future, you're not in a dicey situation, especially when it comes to your money. So if you're listening to this on podcast, whatever it is, iTunes, Spotify, whatever, make sure to rate and review us so that other people can find this. If you're watching it on YouTube, hit that bell, subscribe to our channel, which is youtube.com/howtofilmweddings. We've talked about it several times, but join our Facebook group, which is just search How to Film Weddings on Facebook.
Yep.
And until next time, we'll see ya.
We'll see ya.